Hey everyone, so in this video I want to talk about the third piece on friendship, which is friendship is not speaking ill of others. In the previous part I talked about, thinking on behalf of others. And in my social media vlog that I did on this like a year ago, you can follow that on Instagram where I did it. Really what I talk about is, in this talk, three things. One, it damages your soul. Now, long story short, and I realize I'm wearing like this Snoopy sweatshirt, and like you're thinking like, what is a 25-year-old wearing the Snoopy sweat? Okay, not 25, but like you can speak ill of me, and that's okay. But here's the worst part about one of the worst parts about speaking ill of others. Sure, you might get away with a little bit of gossip or something, but what ends up happening is it actually damages our own soul. And here's what I mean. A few years ago, I was giving a message on similar to this topic, and it's funny because my home church pastor at Mariners, so those of you who go to Mariners, I actually heard a message from our head pastor who said something very similar. So please don't think I'm taking this from him. I actually had thought about some of this a couple years ago, and as I was reading some passage in Scripture, Jesus talks about, obviously from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. But as I like to put it, from what the mouth speaks, it flows back into our hearts. And so what I mean, one small quick example is, when we're in high school, college maybe, but most like high school, like, we're talking to our friends like, hey, who do you like? Who are you interested in? Or what do you think the girl's cute? Or that guy's cute? I noticed that, I don't know if you notice this, but if you never actually tell your friends the name of the person you've been thinking about, or if you never actually say the words, then it's not as real as the moment you say it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like somehow it just got like 10 times more real, right? And I think it's because what we say with our mouths actually impact on us. So we might speak ill of others when they're not in our presence, or like after we stop texting in a group chat, but we say something to another friend about someone else. What ends up happening is it ruins us, right? We cheapen our own worth with respect to like what's in our heart. So that's the first point I want to just bring out, is that I think it really does damage our own souls, because yes, from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, but what the mouth speaks flows right back into the heart. So we gotta be careful what we say. I think a second reason, and this is actually from one of our members on our team who's helping edit these vlogs, and that is, I love what he mentioned. He mentioned that it could actually give anxiety to us, and the reason is simply, if we speak ill of others, like when they're not around, who's to say that we don't know if they're speaking ill of us? And so that can play in our minds. And I think that is an important reason to not be speaking ill of others, because it will, again, ruin us, and therefore maybe even produce some anxiety in us. So we got to be thoughtful and careful about that. But the third, and I'm going quick here, but the real reason we don't speak ill of others is simply because that's not how you treat people, let alone friends, right? We just don't speak ill of people because that's not treating people with dignity. And I think that's what a huge part of what it means to have good friends, or to be a good friend. And that is, just not speaking ill of others. Now, the conclusion of this is like probably what I want to spend some time, which is, okay, well then how do we do that? How do we become the kind of person that doesn't speak ill of others? And I've got two lines of thoughts. The first is a 3-step process. As a professor or a pastor always does, there's like 3 different points with sub-points of each, but 2 lines of thought. Here's the first line of thought. The only way we're not going to speak ill of others is if we don't think ill of others. So, okay, that's it, right? Just don't think ill of others, and just have happy thoughts, and you'll be a happy person toward other people, and you always speak happy things. Yes and no. I mean, let's reflect on positive thoughts, or kingdom thoughts, as Paul would say in Philippians 4, 8, and 9, and so forth. But how do we not think ill of others? It's not so easy, right? Because if you have a gripe against someone you don't like, or maybe even your parent or your spouse or your best friend or whatever, you have a particular negative thought, you can't just switch it off, right? And I think the thought on that for me would be, to not speak ill of others is to not think ill of others, but to not think ill of others, you've got to pray for others. I think it really comes down to it. Jesus says, pray for your enemies. I'm thinking we also have to pray for our friends, because it's one thing to pray for our enemies and not speak ill of them, but sometimes the people that we are more likely to speak ill of are the people who are closest to us. But how often do you find yourself praying for people close to you in your life? And I mean, I don't mean just like, oh Lord, please protect them from coronavirus, please help them stay healthy, but like real detail, like, God, would you bless them with an incredible week, even just today. Lord, they've been praying for this one particular job, like really going for them, in a positive direction, right? So I think that's one straightforward way, is to by praying for them, we're not going to tend to think ill of them, and therefore we're not going to speak ill of them. But the second thing that I want to home in on a bit here is, again, I mentioned this, but this notion of virtue ethics is so important. I'm saying we as Protestant Christians, and I love my brothers and sisters who are Catholic. I actually did my doctoral dissertation on Catholicism in part with Islam, but we often look at like Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, and the rituals we find there, and think to ourselves like, oh yeah, we shouldn't be ritualistic and just go through the motions, and that's so hypocritical. Like, we got to be real authentic, as evangelicals or Pentecostals, Protestants, you got to be genuine, right? But here's the value and virtue I see in the Roman Catholic tradition. They will do what they would refer to, I have friends who've told me this, Catholic calisthenics, right? Like stand, sit, light the candle. Like, they will do like Catholic, movements in motion. But as I love to say, and as you've heard this before in other places, right? Motion creates emotion. And the other way I like to say it is really actions often precede affections. So we're waiting, right, to feel the right way about things. But let's learn from the Roman Catholic tradition of, hey, whether you feel it or not, let's do it. And notice that as you engage the motion, your emotions get engaged. I like the way, so I'm setting all this up to say, like, to end with, like, how do we not speak ill of others? But Denzel Washington was giving a graduation speech at a university, which I believe it wasn't even a Christian university, but he was saying, look, hey, all you guys out there, you see me as Denzel Washington, movie star, producer, director. That's all good and fine, but there's a couple things you don't see. One of the things is the decades of hard work that I put in before anyone knew who I was, or cared for that matter. And secondly, if you really want to know the secret sauce to the success I have, the secret ingredient is this. Everyone right here, he's talking about to college graduates, right? Everyone right here, go out and buy yourself a pair of house slippers. And tonight, before you go to bed, throw them under your bed. Because tomorrow morning, you're going to have to get on your knees to go retrieve those slippers. And his point is, he prayed to get to where he is. And my point would be, the reason he prays and the reason he's encouraging to buy slippers is because the motion of getting on your knees, the act of dependence and reliance on God, is more likely to engender feelings of the reality that we do depend on God. And so we're more likely to pray, right? So actions precede affections. Motion creates emotion. And so with that, virtue ethics says, if you want to be a virtuous person, like not speak ill of others, if you want to be patient, courageous, loving, compassionate, and so forth, then what you do is you do a loving, compassionate, patient act. And as you habituate the virtues, as you cultivate, as you sow a habit that eventually becomes a part of your character, virtue ethics says, do the motion, do the action, and let the rest of your character follow over the course of 30, 60, 90 days, and then for a lifetime, right? So that's what I find beautiful about the Roman Catholic tradition. It's what I find beautiful about Aristotle and the virtue ethical tradition. And it really is about, how do I become a good friend to both Christ and to my community? And I think it's by habituating the virtues. Like calling your friend and spending the 10, 20, 30 minutes rather than texting for 2 seconds when you find it difficult because life is too crazy. But if you really want to develop friendship, you spend the extra time and you become a generous person with your time. I am preaching to myself right there, right? You do enough of these kinds of things, and then you find yourself not speaking ill of others because you are overall a virtuous person, generous too, hopefully in the progress of it all, right? In the process of it all. So Forgive me. I know our look and feel, even you guys, is actually for kind of a late night fireside chat. And so sometimes by the end of the day, my brain is a bit fried because it's like lecturing all day and office hours with students and all kinds of stuff with meetings for the Renaissance. But long story short, you guys, I'm committed to doing this because, to be honest, one of the folks who actually does the descriptions, the writing, she's our copy writer. She encouraged me big time with a 3-minute voice note on my iPhone the other day with this notion of like how blessed she was. I guess it's kind of weird for me to say this, but on the second vlog we just did. But to me, like what Sophia has done is invested in, not deliberately, but just organically, because I guess she was blessed, and I take so much encouragement from that. Consider subscribing. We are honestly trying to push culture in the direction of the kingdom. That's the mission of what we're doing here. But long story short, we want to shift culture. We've got this new initiative we're launching called the Renaissance Collective. It is just a deep heart's cry of we see a lot going on in our culture, and specifically folks who are artists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. We want to engage with you guys on our Instagram. That's our heart. Now we want everyone to figure out their calling, and everyone to live with great character, and everyone to impact culture. But in our heart at Renaissance, we do feel that the Lord is specifically helping us connect with artists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders because of our mission. But if there's any way I can be of service to you, your community, your church, we do a lot of workshops on calling. I didn't really plan to plug all this, but I just thought that, we can't keep waiting for the culture to change on its own. One last thing I'll say is politically a lot going on in our world, our nation at least, but around the world. And everyone who's a student of politics and culture knows that politics is downstream from culture. What that means is culture is upstream, and what culture does is it sets the agenda. When people say, hey, we have the president we deserve, whether it's Trump or Biden, the reason they're saying that is because it means that the culture, wherever we are as a people, our hearts, our values, our habits as a culture, that's going to produce the president who's trying to gain votes. And so the politics is listening to what's going on in culture and trying to gain momentum on their side. So politics is following the cues of culture. So what we've got to do, I believe, is we've got to push culture and in the direction of the kingdom. So regardless of politics and everything else that flows down from culture, it will reflect what culture is. That's why we need to create culture that is true, good, and beautiful. That's, in a minute, literally, the thesis of the Renaissance Group. That's what we're all about. And so if you're interested, connect with us on social. It's one main way I think culture is produced these days. But I just want to just engage the audience and tell everyone that I want to be as authentic as possible as we do these YouTube videos, and also try to give you guys as much value as you watch. Well, I hope this has been of some help to you. Please be praying with us and partner with us in whatever way to help us shift culture toward the kingdom. All right, well, take care and see you at the next one. Peace.